Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Triple Threat Show. I'm kidding. It's actually in the crease here today by the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, today joined by my friend, co-host, and hockey expert, Shane Brisland, in the building. We are here to break down everything, and I mean everything, that you could possibly want to know about the world of hockey. We'll go over the Olympic rosters. They have come out. Who are the snubs in Canada and the U.S. team? What are the snubs from around the world, and what can we expect on smaller ice surfaces in Milan? No goals. That's what I expect to happen. Very little scoring, but we will have to see what happens in a couple of months in the Olympics. We'll break down the rosters. The mid-season award races are heating up. That's not a real thing, but it is here in the crease. We will take a look at who is leading for the major awards in the NHL. We will take a look at who we expect to finish out the season strong. And, of course, we'll finish off with a little bit of a standings check. Halfway through the season, just about at this point, we need to see who's in, who's out. This is where we really get to start to see the separation between the pretenders, the contenders, and those fringe playoff teams. We're going to see who's good and who is bad, the separation about to occur. But Shane, how are you doing today? How's Pittsburgh? What's it like to not have school right now?
Pittsburgh is cold, but at least it's getting a little warmer. The Penguins are finally doing well again, so at least the city's a little bit happier. The city was really happy after they watched Tyler Loop miss that field goal wide right. I was watching that game, and I thought for sure the Ravens had it in the bag when Isaiah Likely had that catch. But yeah, the city of Pittsburgh pretty happy right now. I'm currently enjoying some downtime before nursing school absolutely wrecks my shit up. So I'm trying to enjoy the free time, trying to watch some hockey, and I'm very excited to talk about this sport I love. With
Well,
the rosters coming out, Olympic hockey, so excited for it to be back. It's been what 12
it's
years since
been way too long
2014 was
since
the
we
last
saw
time.
the NHL
Way too
players.
long.
Way too long since we saw the NHL players on the Olympic ice there, Shane. But let's start right there. Let's start with the guys on your shirt, that Maple Leaf team, the Canadian national team. Let's talk about them a little bit. They're stacked. I think that is the first place to start. You have to start with that forward core, right? That first line, that line of doom and death and destruction. I mean, terrifying stuff right now. We'll talk about snubs in a second, but Shane, talk to me a little bit about this roster. Obviously, you've got Crosby, you've got McDavid, you got McKinnon on that line, but who else is standing out on this team of just absolute studs and all-stars?
It's just when you see the amount of Stanley Cups on this roster, when you see the amount of playoff experience, MVPs, awards, no other team comes close to the trophy case that Canada has right now. While they do have some weaknesses, I do think other nations have better depth in some areas. When it comes to top end talent and forward depth, no one beats Canada. The three leading NHL scorers all on Team Canada. Um, and Nathan McKinnon and McDavid on the same team should be considered a war crime in the world of ice hockey. It's just the thought of that two-headed dragon is terrifying in how much they tear up the NHL, and I expect them to do the same thing in the Olympics.
Oh, it would be terrifying. Oh my God. I love watching the Canadian national hockey team. It's just so much fun. When they get on the power play, you just know that it's done. It's over. It's unfair. This Canadian team is so good. Shout out Tom Wilson making the Canadian team. Shout out to goalie Logan Thompson for making the Canadian national team. Two Capitals representing their home country in Olympic hockey, something that a lot of them have been really looking forward to doing. I want to talk a little bit about Macklin Celebrini, though, because he's had just a special season so far for the San Jose Sharks. Where is he going to play? Because he is not a first liner on this team. Is he going to headline the second line? Where are you putting it? How are you making these lines?
That's a great question. I don't know what Canada is going to do with their lines. I feel like you can't go wrong either way.
Oh,
It's just
no.
you have so much talent You can put him anywhere, and it'll probably be the right decision. I want to see Macklin Celebrini play with one of the McDavids or the Nathan McKinnons of the world. I just want the the fan service of seeing that young special player, the next Sidney Crosby potentially of the NHL, who's going to pass the torch along to. Maybe having him play with the Uncle Crosby, have him play with the old current goat of the NHL, and just have that mentor mentee duo. But I think you can put him anywhere, and it's just not the wrong decision. Even if he's like a healthy scratch, I just think it's good for him to be there, to be around all of the talent and personality, and know the legacy he's going to be carrying forward.
Yeah, the one thing that sticks out to me, if there had to be a weakness on this, and I will say there's no weakness on this roster, the defensive core for this team is a little bit old for my liking. Like, I know that's not necessarily an issue for like a 2-week long tournament, but it's a little bit concerning to me when you're going to play in, I guess, what's going to be a little bit of a different game than the NHL, a more physical game than the NHL. I don't love that a lot of these guys are older at this point.
I think you have to go. Drew Doughty is really the one that sticks out in age. He's like, don't know his exact age off the top of my head, but he's got to be like mid to late 30s by now. And with the shorter ice and his specialty more being like a two-way defenseman, he's not as offensive as he used to. So timing is everything with him, and he still has enough legs, and he's a smart enough player to make it work. And he's one of the few players who has Olympic experience and an Olympic gold medal. So I think having him around for, to ease the tensions a bit, to keep everything in the locker room cool, to know what it's like going in and passing on his knowledge to the other players. I think it's great to have him on the roster. But, there's a few names I disagree with, like Colton Parayko hasn't had a great season for St. Louis. Travis Sanheim, he was on the Four Nations roster, but Philadelphia has looked really good this season. They're currently in a playoff spot. There's a theme here where they're going with more two-way players, more players who are big, have size, and can do it all, provide a little offense, be a net front presence. But I think if anyone goes down with injury, because Devon Toews, he's expecting a kid around the time of the Olympics, so he's not guaranteed to go over to Milan based off his personal situation. But I'd love to see Matthew Schaefer on this roster.
Yeah, the one thing, and I was kind of disappointed. Correct me if I'm wrong here. This is the same defensive core as it was for the Four Nations, and it was a good defensive core. But when I'm looking at this team, again, if I had to pick a weakness, which I'm going to tell myself I have to pick a weakness, that is it. You cannot tell me the forwards are weaknesses, because you would be stupid and wrong to think that the forwards are a weakness on this team. You have, in my opinion, the Vezina frontrunner right now in Logan Thompson on this team. The goalies are not a weakness. It has to be the defensive core. I just think they could have done a slightly better job here, with all of the talent that they have around Canada. They have Cale Makar, so it's not bad. But it's I think it could be better.
Yeah, because I think some of the notable cuts were, Jacob Chichurin having a really good season for the Capitals, Evan Bouchard for the Edmonton Oilers. But those are very offensive guys who are more known for scoring on the back end instead of like providing really good defense. I think they would rather go with the safe approach of someone who has a more well-rounded game in this kind of tournament.
Yeah, we will have to see what happens here, but let's talk a little bit about the snubs on this team. Obviously, injuries play a big role in this, but the big snub for me, Connor Bedard. He was a guy that I thought they would throw onto the roster as just like an experience kind of thing, like a reserve kind of guy, but he didn't really get the nod here. Again, I know he's hurt right now, but I feel like the injury isn't as bad as out for the Olympic break. I feel like he'll be back by that point. I would have liked to see Bedard on this team with Crosby, with all of these old heads Canadians, right? This is like an experience building, like something that you can show on your resume a little bit. I think Connor Bedard is a guy that I would have loved to seen on this. And again, like you were saying, Matthew Schaefer, a lot of those young guys that didn't quite make the squad, I would have liked to see them get at least a reserve spot kind of thing.
Yeah, Connor Bedard has been the most notable exception just because he has a lot of media hype surrounding him because he came into the league as one of the most highly touted prospects we've seen in some time, and he hasn't quite lived up to that yet. And then he was starting to early on this season with 44 points in 31 games and carrying a really bad Chicago Blackhawks team. But it's a stacked roster. It's like, who are you gonna replace him with? Because you already have goal scorers, and he doesn't really lend himself to be a more versatile player like some of the other players you see here, like a Mark Stone or an Anthony Cirelli, who can kill penalties and play a depth role. Connor Bedard's a top six scorer. He's not great in faceoffs. He's not known for his defensive game, and you already have a lot of offensive talent. So you're basically having a player that already kind of does the same thing as what you have. So I think it's just too stacked. The lack of versatility in his game, it just kind of, unless there's an injury, you can't really make an argument to make room for him. But I think it would have been good just to have him on the roster again, just to be around all these players and know, like, you're the next in line coming up. So I think next Olympics in 2030, he's going to be there. I think he's only going to get better. And I think, this is the first time he's ever been rejected by a team in his career. And it was a former first overall pick. Sorry, I can't hear you, Jeremy. Jeremy, I don't think I can hear you.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you're supposed to be that next coming of whatever the next great player is in the NHL, the highly touted number one overall pick. You don't generally get rejected from a lot of teams. I still would have liked to see him on there just for the experience, not necessarily even touching the ice. Like, he could just be on the team, be with the team, be with those guys. I think that'd be valuable experience for the future of Team Canada as they continue to, I guess, prepare to move away from the guys that have been the core of their roster for the last 20 years at this point, at least the last 10 in their respective careers. But let's move over to the U.S. here a little bit because...
Jeremy, before we move on, I want to hear your opinions about this player who was cut. I am shocked by the amount of people who are upset that he was left off the roster. I don't know if like hockey pundits or NHL analysts just have a very different view from us, but people are really upset online about Sam Bennett not making this team.
See,
he made it for the Four Nations. He had the game-tying goal in the championship game in the Four Nations tournament. And I think he's just one of the most overrated players in the league at this point.
Right. I've seen him as a snub on a lot of lists, right? When I was doing research, I saw Sam Bennett as a snub for a bunch of lists, but I mean, who are you going to take him over, right? Are you going to kick out? I guess you could kick out Parenko, but like, I don't mind him not being on the roster. There's other people that I would take over him. There's other people that aren't on the roster that I would take over him. And I just don't think he necessarily needs to be there. Like, it'd be nice, I guess, but this isn't not a throw everything out the window, get angry kind of situation if he's not on the roster in Italy during the Winter Olympics.
Some people I've seen online, like some well-respected people in the hockey community, have said something about surprised that Sam Bennett's not on the team. And I just couldn't disagree more because he's such a mid player.
Well,
because like Markov got hurt and he's kind of had to take a bigger role in Florida. And you can kind of see how when he has to play a bigger role, he just doesn't live up to some of the other players on this list. Like, yes, he has been clutch in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but this is a completely different game from the NHL playoffs.
Right. And I think that playoff point is where you're getting that hold of, because players that step up in the biggest stages, in the biggest moments, they're going to get this buzz. They're going to get this, oh, they're better than they really are. And this is not to take away anything from Sam Bennett. He's great. He just won the Conn Smythe Trophy, right? He's a really good player. You don't like that he won the Conn Smythe, but
It still blows my mind that he won a Conn Smythe, and like Sam Reinhart, who's like led Florida in scoring these past few years, they're like, whatever.
I mean, you can see why I understand why people are mad. I do. I just don't think it's that big of a snub. Like, it's a snub, sure. You can tell me it's a snub and I won't disagree with you. But this isn't a get angry, fire the coach, change the leadership of Team Canada kind of snub.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little
Well,
bit
another
about
argument I
good
want
old
to make
US
is
of A, hometown team, the guys that will be attempting to take down Team Canada, the three-time reigning gold medal winners in Olympic hockey, Team Canada. Let's talk about this team a little bit, right? Let's start off as we did with that forward core for the U.S., right? Headlined by guys like Jack Eichel, headlined by guys like Austin Matthew at the top here. What do you make of this roster right now for the U.S., especially in the forward core?
it's a really good forward core, but what stands out to me is the people they left off, and it's just kind of glaring the names you see on this roster compared to the pedigree of some of the people left off. But it's a good forward core. Like, what's going to make or break this tournament is your top two lines and your top end talent. So like maybe we're overblowing the 3 or 4 interchangeable forwards in the bottom 6 and how much of an impact they had. Maybe we're just blowing this out of proportion, but I'm just think they've left off some really good names on this list.
Look, if there was going to be one name that got left off the list that I would throw a riot over, it was Jason Robertson, right? He's the guy that is going to be the big headline, at least for me, with this team. There's a couple guys that I might take over, that I might take him over on this roster, right? As much as I like Matthew Boldy, I might take him over Matthew Boldy one-on-one. Like, they play a little bit differently, but that's fine.
Of all the fucking players, you choose Matthew
First
fucking
one on the
Boldy
list.
to replace.
It wasn't the only one. There's a couple other guys. Don't worry, right?
He is second among Americans in scoring. I think first now. I think he may have overtaken Jason Robertson in goals. But you're saying Matthew Boldy over JT fucking Miller, Brock Nelson.
Oh, hold on. I was getting there. I've got a list pulled up, and he was the first name on the top of the list.
As a Wild fan, I'm just like, okay, maybe you think he's a better player than Matthew Boldy, but cutting him from the roster.
I didn't say that. I didn't say cutting. I said I would take him over. It's two very different things.
Sorry, I'm defensive about my boy Matthew Boldy, my Wild legend.
Don't worry, I was
hero.
getting there. JT Miller was the next name on my list, just so you're aware. JT Miller, I would take him. I wouldn't take over him. I wouldn't take Brock Nelson over him. I don't think I'd take Vincent Trocheck over him, although he's having a pretty solid season. That's just a couple names. You could make arguments for a few more, but those are the guys that, I mean, I feel pretty strongly that Jason Robertson is better than.
Yeah, so Jeremy, I want to give you some stats to show how egregious missing Jason Robertson on your roster is. For the calendar year of 2025, he leads Americans in points. Among goals of the calendar year, he leads Americans. He had a 109-point season in 2023. And in the past 3 seasons, he leads Americans in points. And he's top 5 in goals. And like, I get it from the eye test. Jason Robertson doesn't stand out much. He's not like a McDavid or a McKinnon or like a Matthews where you notice, oh my God, he has this incredible shot or he has this incredible speed. In fact, he has one of the slowest average speeds in the NHL. But I think a really good comparison for him is a Jake Getzel, where he doesn't really stand out much in terms of the eye test, but he always seems to be in the right place at the right time to score goals, or whenever he has the puck, he just takes it to that open space and just finds that open spot on the goalie with a deceptive release to absolutely snipe it. He's the kind of player that will play phenomenally with really skilled players. And it's not like he hasn't performed in the playoffs at all. He has like 40 points in like 50 playoff games. It just doesn't make sense to me. And as a Filipino American, I have to say, I am offended that they cut the Filipino American on the roster despite how well accomplished he is.
What ties stronger here? You're tied to the Wild or you're tied to your Filipino American?
Unfortunately, it's a Wild fan first and then Filipino second. So I really wish he wasn't on the Dallas Stars. It would make it easier to root for him. But I have to vouch for him when he gets disrespected on the international stage like that.
Oh well, one step at a time. One thing that I think is interesting, and it was something that had to get done. I will clarify. Both of the Tkachuk brothers are on this team. And again, that with the way that the Four Nations Cup went, the stardom that they rocketed themselves into in the Four Nations Cup, they both had to be on the roster. But if I was building this roster without any of that outside noise going in, I'm not putting Brady Tkachuk on this roster. I don't know if I'm crazy for that, but I don't think I am.
A lot of people in the hockey community would think you're crazy for that. Yeah. Just because, they're obsessed with big, strong, physical players who can score.
But that's what I'm saying. Like it's nice. It's nice. And again, I'm not arguing with the decision because you had to do it with everything surrounding this U.S. team and everything surrounding the Tkachuk brothers as the faces of this U.S. squad. But there's better names out there. There's better players out there.
Yeah, but the theme is they're just not big.
I don't
names
care.
That are left off. I mean, because
you
Cole
don't need
Caulfield,
to be big.
Not according to the U.S.
I get it. I do get going for size here. You have, again, those smaller ice rinks, I think, are going to be a huge part of how these roster constructions are. Less space, bigger bodies, makes it harder for teams to score. Also, lets you punish teams a little bit more when you got those bigger bodies in those smaller spaces. So it's an interesting way to look at things, but I just that's not how I would build the team personally.
Yeah. Another thing I want to bring up, JT Miller has 22 points in 35 games and is a -11. Vincent Trocheck, 30 games played, 25 points, -8. And you could argue like, oh, we need penalty killers on the roster, right? The New York Rangers currently have a 16th in the league penalty kill. So a lot of people did not. There was some controversy behind Anthony Cirelli and Hagel making Team Canada, but at least they're part of the top 5 penalty kill unit in the league. When you're talking about having a specialty role and you're choosing players who are mid at best at the specialty role, it just kind of makes me question, were there not other more versatile players out there?
Yeah. I want to move over to the defensemen a little bit because there are to answer your question, there are more versatile players out there, but that's clearly not how they're building their team right here. I want to move to the defensemen a little bit, and this is a really good defensive roster. I think this is maybe the best defensive core out of any Olympic roster that's out there. I mean, you talk about headlined by Quinn Hughes, Seth Jones, Charlie McAvoy. I mean, I could literally name all 8 defensemen and say that they're headlining it. That's kind of where we're at with this U.S. defensive core. I don't necessarily disagree with any of it. I don't know. I think they kind of nailed this core right now.
What are your opinions on Adam Fox not making it?
I mean, look, I like Adam Fox, but I'm not going to pretend that this is the same Adam Fox that won the Norris a couple years ago, right? This is a different. He's still very good. It's just he's not that guy anymore. He's still like an all-star level player, but Olympic roster, I don't know if he quite makes that cut.
This one is.
What'd you say?
Especially with how stacked this one is.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's not anyone on this roster that I would take off. I have no qualms with this defensive core at all. No. None at all.
Yeah, so what people are saying and what I agree with is that you already have people who fit his niche on the roster as like a power play puck moving guy. You have Quinn Hughes and Zach Werenski. And those are two of the best offensive defensemen in the league, and the rest of the roster is kind of more like two-way guys who excel defensively. And then Adam Fox hasn't really shown that that's one of his biggest strengths. So they went with somebody who's more of a do-it-all kind of player than someone who's more of a specialty player.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I would not touch this defensive core. I understand if you want to get Adam Fox in there. I could hear an argument for a guy like a Jackson Lacombe, but I'm fine with the decisions that they made. The goaltending core, easy decision. You've got your 1-2 punch of Hellebuck and Jake Ottinger. I do have a question with this though. Hellebuck has not had his greatest season. He's not in that Vezina conversation this year, and he's struggled in those big moments. He's struggled in the Four Nations. He's struggled in the playoffs, especially. Do you think about starting Ottinger over him? Because I might start Ottinger over Hellebuck in the Olympics right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the question. Hellebuck just hasn't shown that he can be that guy. I wouldn't blame the Four Nations lost on him. He had a pretty good game.
No,
You
he had
really
a good
can't
game in the Four Nations, but I mean, the
Yeah.
playoffs is a real concern.
Yeah, but it's like a different tournament. I think they're just going to play whoever's hot. You really can't go wrong there. And then Jeremy Swayman's there just to have a good time. But who knows? Maybe something crazy happens, and then he's the starter out of everything. But I think I've got a gut feeling Ottinger is going to be the guy in net when it comes to a medal game.
I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked for that Canadian team. What's your first line and your first defensive pairing here for this American squad? And how does this stack up to the Canadian team as a whole?
I do like the idea of Austin Matthews and the Tkachuk brothers on the same line, because that will just really set the tone of, they're just going to go in, forecheck hard, and then maybe the puck comes loose to one of the best goal scorers in the league. Austin Matthews has had a down year for his standards, but he's been heating up lately. And then I think now that Quinn Hughes is a Minnesota Wild, I think you just start off with Brock Faber and him on the same line, since they're already building chemistry. But I feel like you can put anyone on the right side and it's the right choice, just because their roster's that good. Like, compared to Team Canada, of course, they don't have the top end talent like nobody in the world does. Just having a first line of a power play unit of Cale Makar, Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, like that in itself is a cheat code. Like, you're not going to top that. But I think they do have the depth to keep up with it. One thing I would like to bring up is that this isn't going to be reffed by NHL refs. Like, yes, there are some NHL refs going to the Olympics, but it's going to be mostly IIHF, International Hockey Federation referees. And they ref the game differently from the American play style. And I'm worried that the US is going into this mindset that they can play as like a North American game where they can be physical. But in Europe, they call a lot more penalties. They're going to call this a lot more stricter. Like, they're not as forgiving when it comes to fighting in European leagues and rules, and they're playing by those rules. So I'm kind of worried that this team is going to be taking a lot of penalties, and they're going to get outskilled when they really crack down with some of these calls, like I watched in the World Juniors, because the World Juniors, they were calling it pretty tight.
When you say calling it tight, how different is it? Is it just that they're actually calling every minor thing, or are there different rules when we're talking about NHL North American hockey versus the international hockey?
So my favorite rule when it comes to the NHL is roughing, because roughing is the call where, like, I don't know exactly what penalty I should call, but he did something he was not supposed to. And so when it comes to the net front battles in front of the net, where it can get pretty rough and intense, they may call something that in North America would be seen as a normal scrum, or like if your shoulder even grazes somebody in the head and like the guy's not hurt, ends up fine, like they may give you a 5-minute major anyway. Is some of the controversial things I've seen. Or like if your net front battle and your hand happens to hit a player in the head, like they're gonna call it. Or if it's just a hard hit, like yeah, it could be a clean hit, but if you do it like too hard, I guess like the European refs may call it. So I am kind of worried after watching the World Juniors, getting reminded of how international hockey is called, that the chucks may not be useful because they'll just be in the box half the time.
Oh, they're just gonna be sitting in the penalty box. Them and Tom Wilson, they can enjoy a little bit of rest in the penalty box over there. But a lot of stuff to like about these rosters. Again, I like both of these rosters a lot. They're probably 1 and 2 in the world. I'm gonna get rid of that precursor. Probably they're 1 and 2 in the world right now.
Yeah.
How close are they? Like, I know the Canadian roster is better. I'm looking at it on paper. I'm seeing that this Canadian roster is better. But how much better is this Canadian roster? You give it, like, out of 100, the Canadian roster is a 95, and the United States roster is what, like an 80? Is an 88, 90? What are we talking here?
Yeah, I think the forward core alone is just 95 out of 100 when it comes to like building the perfect team. And then the US, I would just like knock it down to like 90 out of 100 just because they left off a few players in the bottom six. But no, two really good teams. They should be the favorites. They should be, if they don't face each other in the medal rounds or in the, if they don't meet each other earlier in the bracket, they should be 1-2 gold, silver. If, crazy stuff doesn't happen. But I think it's Canada's to lose. I think odds are, I don't know if there's betting odds out yet. I think it's still Canada's to lose.
I would expect it to be Canada's as the betting favorite. 3-time gold medal champion in a row, defending Canadian gold over there in the Olympics.
When NHL players play.
NHL players are playing. That's right. Yeah, when NHL players play. Yes, that's the caveat there, yes.
Yeah, because I was going to say Russia has won a few times since then.
Yeah.
I mean, or the whatever bullshit non-Russian name they put.
The Confederation of Russian Athletes or whatever they're calling themselves.
Because Kirill has a gold medal, and I always love to mention that.
But let's talk a little bit about coming back to the NHL, American hockey here, the big league that we are talking about, the big league that we are covering. We're about halfway through the season, Shane, and the awards races, they're starting to shape up. The Hart Trophy, obviously, the Art Ross and the Rocket Richard Trophy, we're not going to know for a while. That's just leaders in points and goals. But let's talk a little bit about the Hart Trophy, because I think a lot of these awards are kind of runaways. And maybe that's just because the Colorado Avalanche are really good at hockey right now, and they're kind of running away with everything. But this feels like another McKinnon Award. A second one. We were talking, what was it, last year, that this might be his only chance to win a Hart Trophy. And look where we are, looking to go 2 in a row now for Nathan McKinnon. Is there anyone that could catch up to him at this point?
Well, of course, it's Connor McDavid, who's been really hot as of late. They're like neck and neck when it comes to the points race. But I just don't see, with the way the Colorado Avalanche are playing, how the best player on the best team in the league doesn't win MVP. I was shocked because, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, Colorado's good, so you really don't pay attention to them in the standings. And then all of a sudden, it's like, man, we're 40 games in, and they only have 4 regulation losses.
Yeah, they're going for the best record of all time. Like, it's insane.
Yeah. So, like, some people say, like, oh, what about the President's Trophy curse? But I'm like, what are you guys supposed to do? Purposely lose games? Like, if you're winning, you're winning. You're not going to try to lose. So it's just like, it's not like it's never happened before, but they are the scariest team in the NHL, if not one of the scariest teams of all time going into the playoffs.
I want to give a shout out in this Hart Trophy conversation to Macklin Celebrini here for a second, because he's already up to 60 points. That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah. I have him as the honorable mention 3rd place player.
Yeah.
With what he's doing with the San Jose Sharks, very young roster, and as a 19-year-old to do what he's doing, it's incredibly impressive.
It is very, very impressive. So he gets a shout out. I don't think he's going to win it, and I don't know how close he'll be at the end of the season. I think there's a chance that he slows down a little bit. I mean, who knows? Maybe he doesn't. This is just his second or third year in the league. But what he's doing is genuinely insane, mind blowing, and he's doing it on a roster that isn't that great when you compare it to a roster like Nathan McKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche, right? It's very impressive what he's doing. Macklin Celebrini deserves a huge, huge shout out. The Norris also pretty much a runaway. This one I literally don't have any honorable mentions for. I just don't have a single one. This is Cale Makar's award.
I'd like to shout out Zach Werenski and Miro Heiskanen. I feel like they're perennially underrated. They're unfortunately just happen to be playing in the same timeline as Cale Makar.
And it's a shame, sometimes you just have to play with one of the greatest of all time, and Cale Makar absolutely qualifies as that. He's going to dominate this award for a very, very long time. I don't think there's anyone in his stratosphere this season.
Yeah, nowhere close. It's just when you have the best player in the league and the best defenseman, who you could argue second best player in the league, it's just no coming close to this team.
Calder Trophy, I think, is the most interesting race. Really, I do.
Yeah.
The front runner, I think, clearly-ish, Matthew Schaefer. But I think Wallstedt is a guy that deserves a lot of love. A lot of love here does Wallstedt. He's been amazing. He really has been. Everything that the Wild need out of a goaltender and more. I think he should probably have gotten a roster spot over his teammate. But who knows? I'm not making those decisions. I think it's Matthew Schaefer still, though.
Yeah, I love what Jesper Wallstedt has done this season. He kind of worried me with how he underwhelmed in the minor leagues, but ever since being called up to the main roster, he had a shaky start at first, but midway through what has been the season so far, he just started putting up a shutout streak out of nowhere. I think he currently still leads the league in shutouts, which is crazy for a rookie goaltender to do. They haven't looked as hot lately, but I think down the stretch, if he keeps up this pace, he'll be in the conversation. But I think Matthew Schaefer, with what he's doing as an 18-year-old and the adversity he's gone through already in his young life, like if you don't know this already, he lost his mom to cancer, and I think he also lost his billet mother to cancer, like within a relatively the same time period. So the fact that he's had to endure that on top of getting drafted and having to play with the best players in the world, it's outstanding how well he's carried himself. And he's playing like over 20 minutes a night. He's a big part of why the Islanders are a surprise team and are currently in a playoff spot. And as a defenseman too, which carries a lot more defensive responsibility. But I can't believe he's only 18. It blows my mind because the dude's gigantic.
He's your pick, though. Schaefer? How close is it between Schaefer and Wallstedt?
Unless Wallstedt... the thing is, he's like in a tandem with Gustafsson, and Gustafsson isn't playing bad. Like they're both playing really well. And so I just don't think he'll play enough games that will justify him taking it over somebody who's playing over 20 minutes a night.
That's fair.
I think Ivan Demidov and Beckett Seneca deserve a shout out.
Demidov's still a rookie? I don't like that. I don't like that he's still a rookie. He played like all of last season.
No, he only played like 4 games, and then he had like played in the playoffs. But I think Montreal fans, like, of course, they don't shut up about their players, and so it makes it seem like he's been in the league forever. But like, no, this is rookie year. But he's having a really good season. Beckett Seneca leading rookies in goals. Like really good start to the Ducks. Unfortunately, Ducks are kind of course, as soon as I jump on the Ducks bandwagon, they nosedive.
Shane, you're too heavy for the bandwagon.
Yeah, I feel like I reverse cursed both the Ducks and the Buffalo Sabres, because as soon as I said everyone in the East has a chance except Buffalo, they go on a 9-game win streak and are currently in a wild card spot. And then as soon as I'm like, oh, I think the Ducks are legit, nosedive.
Well, you've got a chance to reverse curse your teams in a little bit here. But sometimes you can't trust the double quack. Sometimes you can't trust the Ducks.
The Ducks never wanted me.
But I've got a couple other awards for you, and I'll let you break down any of these awards that you think are really close. A lot of these, like I said, are kind of runaways. The Vezina Award, Logan Thompson's to win. He has not played as elite as he did in the very beginning of the season. That's not to say that he's playing bad. He's still playing very good hockey. But he's not that elite goaltender, runaway Vezina trophy winner that Vezina favorite, I should say, that he was at the very beginning of the season. I still think he's the favorite, and I still think there's a bit of a gap between him and the next couple guys, but I don't really think that it's 100% a lock right now if the season continues with the trajectory that it is.
Who do you have in the conversation for the Vezina besides Logan Thompson?
I mean, you can look at a couple of the guys that, are always there for Vezina, not necessarily having their greatest seasons. But I'm looking at guys like Scott Wedgwood. Again, I guess you could just do Colorado Avalanche sweeps for this entire award. He's having a really good season, and I'm sure a lot of that is because you have Makar and you have that stacked roster in front of you. But that's just what you deal with. I think, again, Logan Thompson playing really great hockey right now, but he is trending ever so slightly down, as opposed to some of these other guys that are trending up right now.
Yeah, I have Ilya Sorokin on my watch list for the Vezina, just because he's part of what is helping the Islanders being one of the most surprisingly good teams in the league this year. We always knew he had that talent. It's just he's had very underwhelming rosters in front of him. And now that his roster is playing up to his caliber of play, you can see that he's in the conversation for one of the best goalies in the league again. It's Logan Thompson's to lose. Early on, he was carrying some really bad Caps teams. The Caps had such a hard time scoring early on in the season, and the only reason why they were still competitive and kept their heads above water was because of the play of Logan Thompson. And I think it's his to win if he can keep up this pace throughout the season. But I know there's a name that I want to mention that you will absolutely despise. His teammate on Team Canada, Darcy Kemper.
No.
He was a Vezina finalist last season, and the Kings are still in it. And I think a reason why the Kings always find a way to stay competitive is because now that they have a goalie in Darcy Kemper who gives his team a chance. And I know you don't like the man, but I think he deserves to be put in that conversation again.
Oh, I like the man. I just like it better when he's not on my hockey team.
If he could be on the Caps, at least play well.
Yeah. Look, upgrades. That's all I'm hearing. That's all I'm seeing. The Capitals got off of Darcy Kemper when they should have, and they got the right guys in there. Igor Shesterkin, I think, deserves a little bit of a shout out. I don't think he's going to win it, just because the Rangers have a lot of holes. But shout out to Igor Shesterkin. He's playing really great hockey. And he's the only reason the Rangers aren't bottom feeders right now, if I'm being completely honest. He's so good. He's so good, Shane. Why can't the Rangers help him? Get him some help. Get him on the Capitals. I don't care.
He's making $11.5 million. I think he's fine.
Yeah, but he deserves to win a little bit. I don't need to see another Henrik Lundqvist situation up with the Rangers. I don't need to see two of those in a row.
As people who are partial to the Caps' success, I'm glad to see the Rangers sucking.
Look, it's very beneficial to my happiness that the Rangers are bad, but it's also not beneficial to my happiness when an elite goaltender is getting sold. That hurts my heart. It hurts more than my heart, Shane. It hurts my soul when an elite goaltender is not getting the help that he deserves, because I like nothing more than watching elite goaltending happen at the highest level in the playoffs. It's my favorite thing.
I love to hate, if you couldn't tell. If I could see Chicago and Florida burn to the ground, I will watch in glee.
Wow, whole state. Shane's got some real hate in his heart. Uh,
Oh yeah, I hate dynasties, so
I
I
want to
hate
talk
seeing
a
the
little
rich
bit.
get
The last
richer.
award that I wanted to bring up, though, the Jack Adams Award. I think there's a couple names that you could throw in there. I've got Joel Quenneville as the leader in the clubhouse right now, but with the way the Ducks are playing right now, there's reason for me to be a little bit more hesitant down the stretch there. You could bring up really this Coach of the Year award. It just goes to, oh my God, that team is good. Let's give it to that coach. Which kind of transitions us nicely into our next segment of the standings watch. But what's your Coach of the Year right now?
I've narrowed it down to uh, three coaches. So my three finalists are it was Joe Quenneville until the Ducks decided to nosedive. But they're currently in playoff spots right now. I have Patrick Waugh of the New York Islanders. I have Rick Tocchet of the Philadelphia Flyers and Todd McClellan of the Detroit Red Wings. We didn't really know what we were getting out of these teams. The Flyers had a lot of turmoil. They got Trevor Zegras. Like, were they going to let him run? Is Mitchkov going to develop? And they've played really good defensive hockey, really good team hockey. The Islanders getting Matthew Schaefer, what is on paper kind of an underwhelming roster, but they've got the best out of Bo Horvat, who's played some of his best hockey since we've seen him in Vancouver. Like Matthew Barzal looks like that rookie of the year we saw several years ago. And then Detroit, I'm really surprised by Detroit because I thought they were such a middling roster. But there's still a lot of season left. Any of these teams can fall off a cliff. But as of right now, Detroit, they got their goalie in John Gibson, and surprise, surprise, you get John Gibson, he plays well, you're atop of the Atlantic right now.
Quack
But
quack,
some of their
baby.
guys are finally taking that step of, Simone Edvidson and Sandin Pellikka, some young Swedish blue liners on that Detroit Red Wing back end, taking that next step and developing into full-time NHLers. Moritz Seider, one of the most underrated two-way defenders in the league, he's taken another step in his game. And Dylan Larkin's just leading that forward core. So I think Detroit is the most surprising out of all of those teams, and I would give it to the slight edge to Todd McClellan if he can keep this up and get Detroit to a playoff spot.
One other name that I'd throw into the mix there, Ryan Worofsky of the San Jose Sharks. A lot of that just has to do with the development of Macklin Celebrini because they're kind of sitting in that middling spot. But you go from one of the worst teams in the league to, potentially vying for a wild card spot. I think that's pretty impressive. If he can finish off the season, if the Sharks can get in, kind of like what you're saying with the Red Wings, the Sharks can get in. I think he's a strong candidate for that job for the award as well. But let's transition over to these standings because there is a lot of wild stuff going on. Last time we talked, the Ducks were kings. Last time we talked is not what's happening right now in the NHL. Let's take a look at the standings. Let's start in the West. We usually start in the East. Let's flip it up, start over here, reverse it this time. Let's start in the Pacific Division. The Golden Knights stand at the top, 46 points, although they're on a bit of a losing streak. 5 straight losses for that Knight squad, and the Edmonton Oilers are tied with them on top of that division. Right behind them, there's a 3-way tie for second. The Seattle Kraken, the Kings, and the Ducks all sit at 45, and the Sharks right behind them at 43. That is a jam-packed division as we head into the second half of the season. What do you make of this division? How can you see it playing out as a lot of teams going up and a couple teams on their way down?
I'm just surprised how bad Vegas has been playing. It's like they haven't really found a consistent answer at goaltending. It would really be nice if they had someone like Logan Thompson on the roster. I think letting him go in hindsight has been a mistake. Like Carter Hart just hasn't been able to get it done. Aiden Hill hasn't lived up to his Stanley Cup winning ways. And think a team with Mitch Marner and Jack Eichel would just be doing better and maybe win an overtime game. But I think they're good enough just to stay afloat, and like all that matters is that you make playoffs. Like it doesn't matter how bad of a regular season you've had, as long as you get in, you have a chance. So I think they're one of those teams, like, if they don't look good going into playoffs, you still don't want to face them anyway because they have that experience. Same goes for the Oilers. Like, I do not care if the Oilers limp in off a tiebreaker in the wild card round. I do not want to face that team. I don't want to see angry Connor McDavid flying across the ice, going in between 5 players and scoring a highlight reel goal. I don't want that. I have no worries about the Oilers, barring injuries. The third, I think it's just going to go to the Kings again. I've been watching them lately, and they've been looking hot. Like, I love watching Kevin Fiala. Still wish he was on the Wild. Adrian Kempe is an underrated player. Your favorite goalie, Darcy Kemper.
My favorite.
He's lights out when he can be. And then just the Kraken and the Ducks. The Kraken are just so mid. They're just not the most dynamic team to watch. And the Ducks, I don't know what to think of them anymore. I think they were so hot, but their goaltending, Lucas Dostal hasn't looked great. Peter Mrazek hasn't looked great. And I think the rookie and young core is finally starting to show their true colors, where they don't have the experience to maintain their pace through an 84-game season, and their vets, who we criticized taking on those contracts for these aging players, are finally maybe starting to slow down.
We'll see if they get a second wind. I'm on the same page as you with the Ducks. I like I said last month, I feel like they'll run out of gas at some point. I wouldn't be shocked if they caught a second wind, honestly, but I don't think they're going to. I think they've got a shot at the wild card spot, but they've got to cling tight to where they are, and they've got to snap that 7-game losing streak that they are on. A lot of the teams in the Pacific Division currently, as we record, on a bit of losing streaks right now. I'm on the same page. I think the Knights, the Oilers, and the Kings probably come out of that division with maybe potentially even 2 wild card teams coming out of there with how jumbled up they all are in that division. The Central, it's the top 3, and then everyone else is fighting for their wild card lives, I guess. The Colorado Avalanche, 69 points through 42 games. Oh my God, they are insane. They have lost 2 in a row, though. Overtime losses, whatever. They don't really count.
To the defending Stanley Cup champions and to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I feel like they've lost to some good competition.
Look,
no
man,
need to panic
when the
yet.
Colorado Avalanche lose a couple games in a row, it's noteworthy. They're just that good. 69 points already. They're running away with that President's Trophy race. They're already 11 points up on the next closest team, which is those Dallas Stars behind them. That's a Dallas Stars team that's incredibly dangerous. Jake Ottinger, one of my favorite guys to watch in the NHL. I love watching elite goaltending play, Shane. I don't know if I've said that enough on this show.
Roster snub, Jason Robertson.
Yeah, big snub. Jason Robertson is having an incredible season. The Dallas Stars, and then, of course, the Minnesota Wild also at 58 points. Those are the 3. Those are going to be the 3 representing the Central. Do you see a Utah Mammoth potentially sneak into the wild card? Do you see the Nashville Predators sneak into the playoffs in a wild card spot? What a turnaround for this Predators team this month.
I'd say I have no faith in the Predators. I'm convinced they're going to sell Ryan O'Reilly at the deadline. But the Mammoth, so Logan Cooley, one of their young up-and-coming centers, he had a really hot start to the season and then got hurt. He's supposed to come back, I want to say February. So if they can get him back in the lineup relatively healthy, I think they can really make a big push. It's just their goaltending hasn't been great. I think they'll make a move at the deadline for one, because Karel Vejmelka, he's okay, but he's not going to be the goalie that's going to carry you into a playoff spot. So unless they find a way to remedy their defensive game and maybe get a little bit more depth scoring in Logan Cooley's absence, I think they'll be a fun team to watch. I'm really rooting for them to make a wild card spot, but they've got a lot of issues.
Last thing in this division, what's going on with the Jets, man? This is not the New York Football Jets. This is the Winnipeg Jets. What are they doing? 34 points, bottom feeders in the Central Division. They just won the President's Trophy last year. This is a similar roster to the one last year. I know Connor Hellebuck not having his greatest season, dealt with knee surgery earlier this year, but still, this team is good enough. Like, they shouldn't be the worst team in their division.
I think it's because they signed Jonathan Toews.
That's it.
Again, I'm a wild fan, Chicago Blackhawks hater. Screw Jonathan Toews. He's old, he's washed. But on a more serious note, it just goes to show how much they were carried by elite goaltending last season. Like Connor Hellebuck won an MVP because the Jets are just not a good
2
team
years in a row.
defensively. Their defense is Connor Hellebuck, and if he's not playing well, then that team is really fighting for their lives to like stay afloat, because then they try to outscore their competition. And they lose depth scoring and Nikolai Ehlers to free agency. They were really hoping Cole Perfetti takes that next step as like a young top six forward. He hasn't necessarily done that yet, and their bottom six depth just hasn't stepped up like they've wanted it to. And so, unless Hellebuck carries this team, they're just going to be a lottery team at this point.
Does the way that this season has gone for the Jets change your opinion on Hellebuck's playoff choker status or playoff faller status? Because teams play harder in the playoffs, right? Your weaknesses, they're going to be found out and exploited in the playoffs. Is this showing that it's less on Hellebuck and more on the defensive core and the roster of the Jets altogether? Or is this just a completely weird season with Hellebuck being injured and a lot of other factors changing?
It's a bit of both. Connor Hellebuck is one of, if not the best goalie in the world. And if you watch the Jets in the playoffs, they do not do Connor Hellebuck any favors in defensively. Like, their players, I criticize them for not making more space so he can see the puck or giving up odd man rushes. And it's part of the reason why, like, some people are questioning why Mark Scheifele didn't make the Olympic roster, or why Kyle Connor got scratched in the Four Nations game. It's because they're not good defensive players. Like, yeah, they put up a bunch of points, but when it matters defensively, they're not guys that can be counted on, even though they're their best players. So I think this really calls into question like how good the Jets are defensively. And I do think it takes away from the criticism Hellebuck faces in the playoffs, because the team in front of them can't do him any favors.
That's the West. Before we move to the East, who are your wild card teams? Right now, as we sit about halfway through the season, currently the Los Angeles Kings and the Anaheim Ducks are sitting at that wild card spot. The Sharks, the Mammoth, 2 points back. The Predators, the Blues, 3 points back. And the Blackhawks, 4 points back of that playoff spot. Really, everyone is kind of in it here for the wild cards. How do you kind of see that playing out down the stretch here?
It's very underwhelming, because it's very a top heavy division, because you have your contenders and then you have everyone else.
Everyone's kind of mid in the West, other than the top teams.
Yeah. If I had to choose, I'd say the Mammoth, just because I had them picked from the beginning of the season and I want my prediction to still be correct. And I do really like their forward core. I think Clayton Keller deserves to see playoff action. I like Mikhail Sergachev. If they can just get some consistent goaltending, I think they'll be a very difficult wild card team to thwart. And then I think the Kings are going to make that third seed. It's Anze Kopitar's last year. I think they're going to find a way in it. Wild card or a third seed there. But if I had to pick one more team, I mean, I guess I'm choosing the Ducks, just because we saw what they're capable of early on, and I think they can get back to it. Quenneville is an experienced coach. I think he'll get them back in gear. I think it'll be the Ducks if I really had to pick somebody. I just think the Sharks are too young. Askarov, he's young, still making a lot of mistakes as a goaltender, but he's got a lot of experience. But I just don't think they have that veteran experience to make that push.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is I think the Mammoth for sure are going to be in there. If you look at the plus minus of the team, I guess the goal differential is the way that it's put in hockey. They're the only one outside of the three teams in the Central that are up top to have a positive goal differential on the season. They're plus 6. Everyone else in the West, other than those big three, are in the negatives, which is crazy. It kind of illustrates the way that the West looks, where there's three teams and then everybody else. And I'm not going to count out the Oilers or the Knights, so they can join the squad at the top. Those 5 teams and then everybody else. But I think the Mammoth get in there, whether that's in their division, probably not, or in or in that wild card spot. I think they're one of those teams to get in. I think the Sharks could get in the way that Celebrini's playing. It's hard to take away from. I'm going to give them the nod there.
It would be the fun choice, but if they make the last wild card, that I'd feel bad for having to go against Colorado in 7 games.
Oh, whoever makes that last wild card is going to get gentleman swept at best.
Hey, we said the same thing about the 60-win Boston Bruins, so anything could happen.
You know what? Any given day on the ice, anything can happen. Let's move over to the East here. Let's start in the Metro. The Carolina Hurricanes up top with 55 points. They are up 3 points on the New York Islanders. We highlighted them. They're having a really special season. I won't say out of nowhere because they have the same core that made the Eastern Conference Final a couple years ago. They just fell off a cliff for a while, whether that's due to injuries or coaching changes or really a lot of different factors. They have not been the same team. Are they getting back to it? Is this a mirage with the Islanders? The Flyers, the other team in that third spot, 1 point ahead of the Caps and 2 ahead of the Penguins right now. Those are your top in the Metropolitan right now.
Yeah, I think the Islanders are legit. I think they're this storybook team this year with Matthew Schaefer, and they're just a really deep team, and they really fight for each other. And Patrick Waugh is really rallying these boys to play hard, and for the guys to the left and right of them. Like they play some fun hockey. I love watching Matthew Barzal and Bo Horvat. Whether or not they have the top end talent to make a run, who knows? I just don't see them supplanting the Hurricanes because they've been so dominant for so long. But Ilya Sorokin's the type of goalie who can carry a team deep into the playoffs. I'm glad to see like the potential of this team finally come to fruition. Like it was a ballsy trade to trade away Noah Dobson. Like he was a really good young defender for them, but Matthew Schaefer appears to be the answer, and I'm rooting for them. They're fun to root for, and yeah, it's been a very weird year for the East. I feel like I've never seen it this close at this point of the season before.
I mean, you could say that about basically all of the NHL. There aren't really any terrible teams. There is only 2 teams in all of hockey that have less than 40 points 40 games into the season. That is not normal, right? That's every team basically being on point per game status, which that's basically 500 hockey, right? Every team is mid, is what that's saying.
Yeah.
Which is impressive, but it also makes these playoffs really, really tough to decipher and really projecting the rest of the season really, really tough to see because even the teams at the bottom, the Blue Jackets in the Metro, they're only 12 points back of the Hurricanes at the top, and they're only 8 points back of the Flyers in that third playoff spot, right? If you want to look at the wild card, they're only 6 points back of the wild card, right? No one in the East is out of it. Not a single person, not a single team. But it's really interesting to look at the way it is. The Rangers, we have to see how the injury to Igor Shesterkin is going to be. He is, I haven't heard much on it yet, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. If he's out, that team is falling off a cliff. But
I don't know. Jonathan Quick has played some phenomenal hockey for the Rangers.
I don't know if he can keep it up as like a everyday starter though.
Yeah, he is 40, so maybe he needs his rest.
I mean, when he's in, he's still great. He's a Hall of Fame goalie,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't know if he can still be that everyday guy for a team like the Rangers that are going to leave him out on an island more often than not. Let's talk about the Atlantic here a little bit. The Tampa Bay Lightning on top yet again, 55 points. Excuse me. The Detroit Red Wings, one of the bigger stories of the year, 54 points, right behind them in the Canadiens, matching up to third in that division at 52 points. The Sabres, shout out to the Buffalo Sabres. They are in fourth place in that division, 48 points, 1 point out of the playoffs right now. That's incredibly impressive. The Florida Panthers still hanging around. So are the Maple Leafs at 47 points each. The Boston Bruins have fallen off a little bit, but I mean they're still not out of it. Like we said, everyone is mid in the NHL right now.
Would you say that compared to other sports leagues, that's a really good problem to have? Because I
Oh,
feel like
for
in the
sure.
NBA
It
and the
makes
NFL,
everything competitive. It makes
they
every
talk about
game like, oh,
anti-tanking
you
rules.
know what? I could see them winning, and that's really good for a sport.
And you also get like in the MLB where you have like owners blatantly just refusing to spend up to the cap because they just don't care.
Right.
But the NHL has a cap floor that you have to reach, so it creates a lot more parity. And with the salary cap going up, it's just great to see these players are going to get paid. Yeah, but
It's a good thing. It's a good I wouldn't even categorize it as a problem, honestly. It's just a weird quirk of the sport. And I think it's really
yeah.
exciting. Like you said, this is not a normal year. The standings are not normally this even. Usually at this point there's a team with 20 points, right? Usually at this point there's a team with I won't say with 80 points because that's insane, but usually there's a bit more of a dichotomy between the bottom and the top in each of these conferences, and there hasn't quite been that separation yet, especially in the Eastern Conference right there, where the entire conference is separated by 12 points. That's 6 games, the entire Eastern Conference.
So who do you have? Like, I don't know who I'm going to pick. I'm just curious if you have your heart set out on any of these teams that are going to make playoffs.
Like in general or the wild card?
I mean, at this point, it's just like both because I could easily see these teams like being in the top 3 or a wild card because it's so close.
I think the Lightning, the Maple Leafs, and I'll give a nod to the Canadiens. Come out top 3 in the Atlantic. In the Metro, I'm going with the Hurricanes, I'm going with the Islanders, and I'm putting the Capitals in the top 3. So those are my 6. As far as the wild card goes, I'm going to give a nod to the Florida Panthers, and I'm going to give a nod to the Detroit Red Wings. So 2 out of the Atlantic for my wild card spots.
You think Toronto is going to make a comeback?
I mean, comeback, they're like 5 points out. Like, this is not that crazy of a comeback. Like, I think Austin Matthews has the ability to turn it up at any given point. I think that
We're starting to heat up.
I think when they get Anthony Stolarz back, that's going to make a big difference for that team. He's been on IR for almost the entire season. He played about a month into the year before going on IR. I think that's going to help them out a lot. I don't know when he's coming back. Hockey injury reporting is very unhelpful for just about everything. We don't know when people are coming back. They say, oh, they'll be back in 2 days, and then they miss the next 3 months. And then they say, oh, it's a long-term injury, and then they're back the next game. Who knows? Nobody does. I definitely don't. But if and when he comes back, I think that's going to provide a huge boost for them.
Do you know why that is?
Why is that?
So NHL players have like fought hard in the CBA to like have their injuries like kept very discreet because they don't want the other team to know if they have like, let's say, an ankle injury that's really giving them grief. Their fear is that other teams will like target that ankle and like, take a whack at it when given the chance and try to like worsen it. So compared to other sports where if like let's say Myles Garrett is getting ACL surgery next day, NHL, no one will say anything.
Right. Yeah, that's the tough part. It's hard to know with injuries. That's my big gripe with this sport. I don't know what the timeline is for injuries. I can't be like, oh, they'll definitely be back, or oh, that I guess they're just done for the year. It kind of grinds my gears a little bit, but that's just my media brain going on about it. I do understand why in a physical sport and in a sport where fighting is encouraged a little bit. I understand why that is privacy protected here, but what's your look at for the Eastern Conference playoffs here? I'll give you the final word in the crease here tonight.
So for the Atlantic, I think Tampa Bay is the most stable team. The plus 34 differential compared to the other teams in the division just show how a league above their own and how much fortunate they've been with health. I'm going to go with Montreal in the 2 seed. I just really love the young up and coming player. I think getting Philip Deneau for a second round pick, having to come back. He went to the Stanley Cup final with them a few years back. Having him stabilize that 2C role, having a good defensive center, really helps their goaltending out, which has struggled, but they looked good as of late. Do I want to keep Detroit? I think Detroit's going to fall. Like John Gibson could definitely carry that team, but I just don't think their forward depth is good enough to stay in the top 3. So I'm going to agree with you. I think the Leafs are going to find their way back. Austin Matthews has always been like a second half of the season kind of guy. So I think he'll carry that team back to the 3 spot, especially with how close it is. And then William Nylander's been hurt. He's been like on again, off again all year. Like if he can get back, that team is definitely a 3rd in the Atlantic. In the Metro, Hurricanes, they're kind of the Tampa Bay of the Metro. They've been dominant for years on end. I don't think things are going to be any different. Carolina stays at the top of that division. I really like the Islanders. I think they'll take the 2 spot. The Capitals in the 3 spot. I just don't know if Philadelphia is good enough to hold their position as a playoff team, but they've looked really well-rounded as of late. Now, the wild card is where it gets tricky. I don't know, because I feel like if I double down on not liking Buffalo, they're just going to go on a win streak again.
Well, do you want Buffalo to break the longest active playoff drought in North American sports?
I feel like no matter what I do, I'm going to jinx them. Like if I say they're going to miss, they're going to go on a win streak. And if I say they're going to make it, that's when they Buffalo again. I just think, I'm sorry, Buffalo. I think you're going to make a wild card spot.
Ooh, no, that's not really what they wanted to hear up in the snowy north.
I'm really sorry, Buffalo. I really am rooting for your team. But unfortunately, my heart is set out on you guys. So I think I'm just going to reverse jinx them again. And, I think Philadelphia misses it. I just don't think Philadelphia has like that top end talent to really push them towards a playoff spot. I think Detroit gets the final wild card for me, and that Philadelphia will fall off.
Keeping the Florida Panthers out of the playoffs completely, I don't necessarily disagree with it. I just think that's interesting here.
Yeah, it's when you don't have Sasha Barkov. Like, I don't know if he's going to come back this season. I don't know what he's going to look like if he plays. And then, Matthew Tkachuk coming back. He's also coming off a pretty major injury. Sergei Bobrovsky hasn't looked great. So it's just they've been very streaky and inconsistent, and I just don't know what I'm getting when their 2 best players come back. Because, they're your best players, but are they going to be healthy enough to make an impact? And I'm also just a Florida hater. But it reminds me of the LA Kings when they won, 2 Stanley Cups in 2012 and 2014. Like, those deep playoff runs, they really wear and tear on your body. So, after a while, just trying to play an 84-game season, it just takes its toll eventually. And, they missed the playoffs in 2015 just because they were battling so hard to get there. They had to go through the Chicago Blackhawks dynasty every single time they won their cups. And it just takes its toll at some point. So I think this is the year where it really takes its toll if it already hasn't, with not having Barkov and T'Chaka for basically the whole season.
Yeah, we shall see what happens in the second half of the NHL season. It's been a good first half here. Shane, any final words to send the people home with tonight?
Go Canada.
Wow, traitorous
I'm an
to his
American
own
traitor.
nation
They
here.
disrespected my boy Jason Robertson. I can't allow the Filipino slander. The Canadians have never disrespected Filipinos like that.
Deport him back to Canada. Get him out of here. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of In the Crease by the Triple Threat Show. We'll be back next month, breaking down everything you missed from Olympic hockey, or at least previewing it, as it is going to be right around the corner when we next do an episode of In the Crease. We will be going over everything from around the world of hockey. It will be the Olympic break next time we talk. You can find more of us everywhere you get your podcasts, everywhere. We are doing daily morning shows for the Triple Threat Show, breaking down not only hockey, but every other sport you could possibly think of. Ping pong? Check. FCS championship? Check. We're taking a look at every single sport ever. Come check us out every single morning. We've got a big show tomorrow. We're going to give out NFL awards if you liked our NHL awards here. I will see you then. Shane will see you next month, or maybe a guest appearance on the Triple Threat Show for Shane soon. We will let you know.